Thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all so much for being here. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, if you can't, move to the front. All right, so how many of you have any experience at the Texas Legislature? How many have walked into the building? Thank you for coming to my presentation. That's all you need to know. How many have testified in a hearing? Ooh, okay, how many have written a letter to their legislator? Excellent. How many have just been angry and stewed and not known what to do? Great. Okay, then that's what I am here to teach you. You can ask questions along the way or at the end, and really think about this as a ask me anything. I will tell you anything that I know about behind the scenes, except my relationship with Dan Patrick. We like to keep that private. If you scan this code, that's where the presentation is. It'll live there for as long as Google Drive lives there, but don't cheat, don't go ahead. I have this very well timed. That's all about me and a photo from 10 years ago. What do you think? Okay, so what is the Texas Legislature really like? It's a little bit of this. I wish it were more of that. It's a lot of that. A lot of that. Some of that. Hope I caught every genre in here, but really this is what it's like, right? You know, when our teachers told us to just get through high school and everything would be different, they lied. It's just college. So I was at a party a long time ago with a bunch of staffers and representatives, and some of them were dancing on the floor poorly, and I was like, oh my God, that's our state legislator. And then I was like, oh my God, that's our state legislator. They're just regular people, but they're just regular people. Okay, this is what I hope you'll be able to do at the end of this presentation. Figure out who your own representative or senator is. Describe in general terms the process by which a bill becomes a law. Track legislation in Texas Legislature online. I bet half of y'all already do that. Yeah? Pretend you don't, because I want to feel effective. Make an effective phone call, write a good letter, give good testimony, or stage an alternate rebellion. Okay, this is what you're not going to learn. Anything political, anything about a specific bill, or anything about the federal process. I honestly don't know anything about the federal process. So let's take a quiz. I wish I had prizes. The prizes is freedom. How many legislators are there in Texas? Okay. In both chambers. Yes, that is correct. Anybody have a guess? Very close. We've got 181 members in the House and the Senate. How many in the Senate? Thank you. So if you're good at math, there are 160 in the, 150 in the House. Excellent. And who is your state senator? Sarah Eckhart, probably. Anybody live like Georgetown-ish? Might be Senator Schwartner. Okay. She's your state rep. Your state senator's probably Eckhart, depending. We will find out more later. This is how we do find out. Okay, who wants to give me their address so we can look up your state senator? I will give you my address. So if you come to this page, it's called Find My, Who Represents Me. This tells you everyone from Congress. My rep is James Tallarico, my senator is Sarah Eckhart, and my beloved senators, and then my State Board of Education district. And if you click on this, oh, it's not showing over there. Awkward. Well, let's go back in time. Okay, here's the window I went to, which is the Who Represents Me window. And when I typed it in, my information, fine. Told them all the things I wanted to know, and then I tell you. So this tells me everything I want to know about James, including the bills he's authored, where his district is, and how to reach him. If I want to email him, which I do every day, just to say, hey, James. And who is the governor of Texas? Thank you. In this nonpartisan group. Okay, what's the political breakdown in the House? Remember, we have 150 members. Yeah, we have 62 Democrats and 88 Republicans. And I'm sorry, the Republicans gained 2 people while the Democrats lost 2 people. And so when you're in the House, it's a simple majority to pass a bill, which is typically 76. Sometimes it's a majority of people on the floor, which means if all 150 members are not there, it's not always 76, but generally it is. And then you only, on constitutional amendments, need 100 people. Right? You need 2/3 of the body to pass. So right now in the House, Republicans can pretty much do anything without any Democratic input. And the same is true in the Senate. We've got 20 Republicans and 11 Democrats. The Republicans gained since last session 1 individual. The Democrats lost 1. So the same thing in the Senate. They used to have what was called the 2/3 rule. I'll try to not go too into the weeds on what that meant, but there's a procedure for how you bring bills to the floor, and there's a calendar, and they used to put a bill on the calendar as the very first bill that they passed, and it was always like a beautification bill, right? Like, we need to make Texas more beautiful, Senate Bill 1, and they'd pass it very quickly, and then it sat on the calendar. And then what they would do is you had to, the calendar in the Senate goes in order. It doesn't always do that in the House. So what they would do is they would suspend all necessary rules to hear a bill out of order on that calendar. So when you had the 2/3 rule, you would, if someone voted not to suspend, that they needed more than 2/3 to pass it. So that's how the minority party could block a bill, the 2/3 rule. Well, they changed it to a 3/5 bill. So it took fewer people in the majority party to conquer those in the minority party. And so now, again, in the Senate, too, you've got one party control. I know we're nonpartisan. And so this would happen no matter which party was in power, right? Like right now, it's just somebody has too much power, and it is unchecked. It's unchecked in the state level, at the statewide level, the Senate, and the House. So isn't that exciting? Okay, who's Speaker of the House? You guys pay so much attention. You're right. Dustin Burrows on Tuesday. Who was his main opponent? Cook. And who was the Democratic? Okay. Who's our lieutenant governor? Okay, y'all are killing it. Okay, we already went through who represents me. And who's this? Greg Abbott. Okay, true story. I've never seen him inside the building, and I've been there for a very long time. But near my office, I mean, he doesn't return my calls. It's so weird. But near my office is the elevator bank that he comes in, so I know when he's there because one of the elevators is always open and there's like a Secret Service person. But the bathroom is right there too. So this week on Wednesday, I'm like, here's the elevator bank and here's the bathroom, and I'm walking and I almost like trip over his chair, and I got very nervous and I didn't speak to him the way I wanted to, but I was close, so I'm hoping for another opportunity. Are there any questions over what I've talked about so far? Do y'all watch the legislature online? Do you watch your Spectre TV? Wonderful. I'm really excited. Okay, let's talk about the process. How does a bill become a law? I think you have a great handout in front of you. This is the very general procedure. Remember that a bill has to pass both the House and the Senate in exactly the same form before it goes to the governor. So once a legislator files a bill, there are about 1 million ways to die, right? It is rare that a bill passes, and we want it to be rare that a bill passes because you want enough support for the bill from both parties, and enough time for the public to vet it. So it's a slow process and it's an annoying process, but that is good for us. Pretty much, any member can file a bill. So you can file a bill that says Stephanie Chiarello is the best person in the whole wide world, which I'm trying to get my boss to file. Every year I try to get him to file it. You can file an unconstitutional bill, right? You could file a bill that says women cannot register to vote. And they can pass that bill. And so it doesn't matter if a bill is constitutional or not. They can do whatever they want. You have to challenge the passage of the bill to determine if it's constitutional or not. And so when people file bills and you're like, you can't do that, well, they're going to try. I mean, maybe they can't, but they're going to try. The only thing that members can do is file bills. Everybody can file a bill, and it goes in chronological order. And generally, the Speaker of the House and Lieutenant Governor save the top numbers, Senate Bill 1 through 30 and House Bill 1 through probably 150 for their priorities. Otherwise, it just goes sequentially when you file a bill. So in the olden days, you could only file starting on the first day of session, which this year was January 14th. But recently, they've started letting members pre-file. So pretty much right after the election. Like November 13th might have been the first day you could pre-file bills. And that gives an advantage to people who are already members versus newly elected members. So we do have an organization called Ledge Council, which is supposed to be neutral, and it services all offices. So I haven't written a bill by myself in a very long time. You just call them up and you say, well, we do it online. But I mean, and of course, I never file because my boss files. So this is my little like hill to die on. Is it's called subscription parity. So you know when you go online and you sign up for something and you click a bunch of buttons and you put your credit card in, and now you have Netflix or the American Statesman, right? But then when you try to go cancel, right, it's not up there. You got to find the phone number. You call the phone number. You have to go through the, like they make it purposely impossible. So my boss filed a bill last session called subscription parity, and it says if you can click to buy something, I have to be able to click to unbuy. Surprise, surprise, industry fought it, but the Federal Trade Commission actually came up with a similar rule, so that's my hill to die on. So, I mean, obviously there are other things that are much more important. But so I'll call Ledge Council and I'll just kind of tell them what my idea is, and then they put it into statute and into code in a bill. But they will tell me, they'll be like, you really can't do this, this interferes with federal law, or it breaks some Texas law. But I can say, my boss can say, do it anyway, write it anyway, and then we can file it. So we have our chief clerk for the House, and he used to take paper copies and hand them to him, and he really has a staff of about 20, and they'll stamp it and file it. Now I can just do it electronically. It immediately happens. Yes, ma'am.
I already forgot the name of the organization that you said that works the bills, or maybe you. I'm curious how many people there. Is there issues with?
That's a. I hate when people say that's a great question, because I feel like that's a horrible question. It's called the Legislative Budget Board, and I have no idea, but I bet it's like 500 lawyers. So they're like I mean, you can go and see them, but they stay out of politics. So they're in a separate building. There's a badge to get on their floor. And when you get a bill draft back, that you have the initials of who wrote it, so you can call and talk to them about it. So yes, throughput is a big problem, and we keep filing more and more bills. Like right now when I'm requesting drafts, my draft request number is in the 10,000s. That means that 10,000 other ideas are in the hopper. So before we pre-filed, we got a letter from the LWV that was like, please, only ask us for drafts of things you really are thinking about pursuing. So allegedly it goes in order of you submitting your request. Allegedly. I think some people's priorities come out a little faster. So I put some bills in December and I haven't gotten them back yet. So in front of you, you have the quick version of how a bill becomes a law. Here's the really long version. If you like reading, here you go. All the different things that have to happen. I don't even want to tell you about the calendars. They're probably the flowcharts. This, yes, and it's clicked in the presentation with the barcode. It's a link in there. Again, just to summarize, you file the bill, and then that's kind of it. Most bills die once they're filed. So a legislator can write a bill, whatever she wants, and then it can get filed. After that, it's up to the committee chairs. So committee chairs have a lot of power because they get to pick which bills they put on their calendar for each committee hearing. And there's no order, there's no first come, first serve, there's nothing fair about it. Like, the only fair part of the legislature is filing a bill. Here, we'll skip to another part of the presentation. Okay, so this is Texas Legislature online. And this is like, if you want to nerd out, this is the place to be. I love this site. I would click on every single link to learn more about what's happening. But here's how you search legislation. Okay, and why don't you tell me a subject that is important to you? And I think elections are important to you. Pardon? Vote banning? Okay, so I came to search, I went into subjects, I typed in elections. So I'm going to pick everything from electioneering, everything that has the title of election. So when you file a bill, it gets put into subject areas, predetermined. And click on this button, it takes all of those search terms over to the bill. And you want to make sure you're in the appropriate legislature. We're in the 89th, okay? And you can search previous bills. And if you see how it says 4, 3, 2, 1, those are our special sessions. Thank you for understanding. You can search by author, sponsor, you can search by words, but I think subjects come the best way to go. This is very advanced over here, and so I would just hit search. I think we have 202 bills filed about elections so far. So I thought I really just picked the top ones that I thought might be of interest to you. So here is House Bill 219 by Landgraf, submitting proof of citizenship to verify that you vote. So if you click here, it's going to pull up, the first tab is the history, everything that's happened to this bill. And you can see it's really just been filed, and he probably filed it almost on the first day of really filing. And here's the text of the bill. So you were asking about the legalese of the bill. So here's where it is. This is what it looks like. You'll see here it tells you exactly what part of the election code that it's going to adjust. And anything underlined is new. That's what he wants to add into law. If it's not underlined, it's already there. And then if he crossed anything out, he took that out. Scrolling. So it used to be a person that must submit an application to the registrar, and now it says they also have to prove citizenship. So I hope everyone has their birth certificates with them at all times. Right? Okay, so you were asking, is there an easier way to read this? The answer is right now, no. But once you start reading it, you'll figure it out. And trust organizations like the League of Women Voters or anyone else who you trust. They are paying people, or incredible volunteers are volunteering to read these and tell you. If you go to an older bill from another session, or a bill that's about to a bill that made it to committee, oh, it's all going away. Please. I'm so ashamed. Don't tell my parents, they're sitting in the front row. Hold on. I'm just going to do it on the computer and I'll move it. Okay, so I looked up our bill from last session, the subscription parity one. You can see a lot more stuff happen. and AT&T killed it. I'm going to tell you who did it. They killed my bill. I mean, my boss's bill. But when you come over here to the text, normally there's a bill analysis, and that's the regular layman's terms. Got a question for that. But the fiscal note will also kind of summarize this for you.
So in this labyrinthian process, can you comment on the lobbyist factor in how
Sure. Let me finish this up. Anybody? And you can call the member's office and ask them, what does this bill do? Because normally when we file a bill, we've written a one-pager about it that we're going to shop to other members. We're going to try to get them to sign on. We're going to shop to the committee person, and sometimes we post them online. But just call the author and say, what does this bill do? Do you have a bill? Did it? Okay. So you asked, when did the lobbyists come in? Right away. And part of the point of this training is for you to think about yourself as a lobbyist and an advocate, because you're all important to us. And I think maybe it's just the members I've worked for, but the lobbyists aren't like these evil, they're not all like these evil, Game of Thrones people lobbying with nefarious intent. They're just people who are working for their client, right? So they're going to hustle for their client. But the domestic violence shelter is a client for some lobbyists, or Goodwill is a client, or elder care homes, right? It's not just Exxon and AT&T. I know it's supposed to be nonpartisan, but nobody told me I had to be like pro AT&T in this room. So you come very early, and y'all should come very early, right? So during the interim, so we're in session every other year for 140 days, but there are 18 months generally when we're not in session, unless we're in special session, right? But you should be talking to your representatives about what is important to you. And it doesn't have to be this big, overarching idea. It could just be, I had a really hard time getting my handicap permit at DPS. Like, I couldn't get an appointment, and then I had to wait, and then they made me come in, and we can pass a law that says DPS has to come out to your car. Right? So it doesn't have to be the social fight that we are having. It really is just your personal experience. Yes, ma'am.
all over the city. She sits down and says, okay, what's your interest? And she understands pages of information to mind. They really do.
Because you elect them. I mean, technically they work for you. Right? You're their boss. But don't tell them that when you walk through the room. Be nice and polite. Hey, how are you? So the question is about lobbyists. They are very instrumental and important, but they're not the only people in the building. And generally they're experts on whatever issue they bring you. So sometimes a lobbyist will bring us a bill that they have filed. They've had lawyers file it, or they've had another member draft it, and they're shopping it around for an author. So lots of people ask us to do that. Will you just get a draft in? Like, I'm not asking your boss to file it. And then they'll come and talk to us about a problem. So, for example, in my boss's district, which is McAllen, Texas, there's a lot of abandoned oil and gas wells, orphaned wells, and the Railroad Commission doesn't have enough money to plug these orphaned wells. So certain ranchers have called us and asked us to help them get more funding. And those are really just the ranchers, and then maybe like the Farm Bureau is a part of that. So the Farm Bureau has a lobbyist who's like, buy more milk, or can people stop releasing balloons because our cows are dumb and they eat them and they die. Right? So it's really personal experiences. Like my boss and the subscription parity bill, he struggled with that. That's why we filed it. It had nothing to do with me. And you should be an advocate for yourself. right? Like, is there something happening at school right now for you youngsters? I see 3 youngsters at school. Anything frustrated with anything at school? What? Everything. Okay, we will draft. That's called a Christmas tree bill, where you just hang everything you want to on one bill and pass it. Okay, so back to my chart. You got to get your bill in committee, then you got to get your bill out of committee. And again, that's the committee chair. The committee chair doesn't have to bring your bill up for a vote. Even if they heard it, they leave it pending. And it doesn't matter if the other members of the committee are like, we want to vote the bill out. It's the committee chair. So that's why the speaker has so much power and why the lieutenant governor has so much power, because they appoint the chairman. And in the past, there was a gentleman's rule that the proportion of the body is what was the proportion of the chairs. So if it was 60% R to 40% D, then 60% of the committees had Republican chairs, 40% D. And there is seniority, but it's, again, this gentleman's agreement. It's not steadfast rule. So recently there have been an effort to get rid of Democratic chairs. Right? There are members, the Republican Party in the platform, I'm pretty sure it says no Democratic chairs. And when those people come to the Capitol, they wear a shirt that says no Democrat chairs. And I'm like, well, which one? Well, just one Democrat. I'll give you one Democrat and keep the rest. Okay, that joke went really well. It's the grammar, talking about the grammar on the shirt. So that's a big move. That's a really big move. And regardless of your party affiliation, I think it's pretty dangerous when you just shut the other side out that has also been duly elected by their membership. So we don't know what's going to happen this time around. So Burroughs just got elected. I was not in those backdoor room meetings. I don't know what deal he made with the Democrats. The rumor was either some chairmanships or voucher bill assistance, but it's crumbs, right? When you've got that much party power, one party in power, you're just offering crumbs. So I don't know. I hope we still have Democrat chairs. It takes a couple of weeks. Okay, the question was, when do the committee chairs get announced? And it just takes a couple of weeks, especially now that we have a new speaker. He's got to get his office organized. So the process in the House is they hand us cards, and we do get a seniority pick. And it's like a murder board based on how many senior picks are on a committee. And then if you pick that committee, do you get it? And so you're constantly gaming, who's more senior than me, and what committee do they want? And then I'm going to go for this other committee. Again, I've never been in the back room for that, but generally you get your senior pick, and then the other ones are all up to the committee chair. You have a question in the back, and I'll just repeat it when you ask it.
Well, that is that every committee has a chair.
I don't know. But the vice chair, don't tell anyone, has no power. It is a 0 power position. It is a title. It is a title, and your only job is to coordinate the gift for the committee chairman at the end. I'm not kidding. There is no power. And the chairman can give the gavel over to anyone that she chooses. That's good for chairs. Anyone they choose. So the vice chair, it's just a title. It's just a, well, thanks for being my friend. It's true. It's true. Okay, then, oh my goodness, I got out of committee. I did it. Now I've got to get through the calendars committee, and that's a whole other committee, and this is a top secret committee in the House. But apparently all the bills come in there, and if you are a member of that committee, you can kill a bill simply by tagging it. So you just say, I don't like that bill, and that bill doesn't get placed on a calendar. And the rumor is that you can only tag so many bills, like in that calendars meeting, but calendars is the only meeting that's not in front of the public. I know, I don't know why that happens. So your bill could die in calendars, right? And that's where lobbyists go. They find the members on the calendar and they say, please, I don't like this bill, I don't like this bill, what deal can we make? I'll help you with that other bill. And then there's nothing you can do when your bill is dying in committee. I mean, dying in committee or on the calendar. Then it gets on a calendar. There's several different calendars that I won't go into, but it generally goes in order, right? And so then the way a bill on the floor, the author presents it, people can ask questions, then they vote it up or down. That happens twice. So the first reading is when the bill is filed. The second reading is when most of the debate happens on the floor, and then the next day they do a third reading. And then it goes to the other chamber. It has to do the same thing all over again. You have a question in the back? I really don't know. I don't, because they make the law, I assume that they make, so there is the Public Information Act, and then legislators can make certain things private just for them. So if you look at city council, when they have a meeting, they've really never talked to each other before about that bill, because you can't have a quorum, because then it becomes a right if too many of them get together. But the legislature has carved themselves out so that they can have all the meetings and conversations they want to. It's only the official committee hearings that are open to the public. So they have the power and they carve themselves out. That's the answer. That's the answer. And it can be good and bad. We might want somebody to kill vouchers. I'm sorry. People who don't want vouchers might want somebody to stop the voucher billing calendars, and that could be a very real strategy so that people still think the speaker could be like, I did everything I could, right? And those are deals that they're making with that. Once it goes to the other chamber, it has to do the same thing. Let's pretend it makes it all the way through, but one chamber amended it. Uh-oh. Now they're not exactly the same. You have a question, Sheena? Okay, you gotta go back. So when you bring it up on the floor, let's say I'm a House member and my bill went to the Senate, I'm like, the Senate added an additional provision, that AT&T is banned from the Capitol. I concur with their amendment. So the author will concur or say they want to fight, and then the body votes. So if the author says it's fine what the other chamber did, and then the chamber votes, then the bill goes to the governor as amended. If they don't, they go to conference committee where they work it out. So I bet you think in conference committee, you picture a conference room and they're sitting around and they're talking, breaking bread and really getting to know each other, and that's not what happens at all. The chair of the conference committee pretty much makes the decisions and hands you the report and tells you to sign it. So I do think there are conversations going on between the members, right? But it's, again, I just want to reiterate that it's not fair. There's nothing fair about it. And that's why having a voice and a seat at the table, and why when parties are so divided, it's so hard. Because even 10 years ago, there was a lot more camaraderie in that building and a lot more coming together on lots of bills, right? Like water, transportation, even reproductive care was a pretty bipartisan issue for a very long time. It's just gotten really divisive. And then the governor can veto. Who was asking me about vetoes? So you do work, we do work with members of our own party, members of the other party. We work with, there's an organization called TPPF, which is the Texas Public Policy Foundation. They're a radical right organization. But they can pretty much make or break a Democrat's bill, and you do work with them. Sometimes you amazingly come together on something like a water plant. So it's one of the things I'll tell you later is, you never know who you're going to need, so don't burn any bridges unless you're really ready. So here's some bills that the governor vetoed last session. Let's see what he said. So he says, I'm signing this other one bill, but however, this one would force hospitals to share reams of sensitive health information with the registry, putting the privacy of patients at risk. Never mind your Google data or your Apple data, but definitely don't watch TikTok. So sometimes these are Sometimes they are policy problems. Generally, they are retaliation. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's about the person. Like, I think Senator Eckhart didn't pass anything her first session because this is the rumor, but I told you I'd tell you anything, that she made a bad comment about the governor's wife, and he vetoed every bill. That's the rumor. I don't know if it's true. But he'll do that. And he if you remember, he vetoed. So he can't line item veto. The governor, male or female, cannot line item veto anything except the budget. And so 2 sessions ago, he got rid of the legislature's budget. He was so mad. He cut out the funding for the legislature, which didn't offend the legislators. It was me who he cut, because they have a separate constitutional budget. But it seems like it's not about policy all the time. But these are fun to read. And I really do like the question you asked me about the governor. I should call the governor's office. Thank you for reminding me to do that. Yes.
So does the governor
Yes. Okay. And so technically, either chamber could undo a governor veto. But the bill has to come back to the floor, and then I think it's 100 votes in the House. It's a constitutional amendment. But it has to be within 14 days of the bill getting vetoed. So he purposely waits until the very end of session to veto so that they won't be in session so that they can't override a veto. And you can't use a special session. It resets the clock. So we kind of have these procedures in place that make it seem like there is opportunity, but when you get one party in too much power, it just, if Galadriel couldn't handle the One Ring, who can? Thank you. One person. Got it. That's a Lord of the Rings. The governor doesn't control the calendars at all. It's the speaker and the lieutenant governor and then the committees. So it is in rule how the calendars work. Okay, so the House has several different calendars, and one is like major state calendar, and then there's the local and consent calendar, and they have different processes, but they always go in order in the House. In the Senate, though, they still have that rule that's a 3/5 rule now. So the lieutenant governor, there's no calendars committee in the Senate. So the lieutenant governor decides what bill comes up whenever he wants. And you have no indication that it's coming. And they have something else in the Senate, and I know this is so in the weeds, but I think it's so fascinating, is that each day the senator has to say to the lieutenant governor, these are the 3 bills I really hope you bring up, and it's called the notice of intent. So you say to the lieutenant governor, I'd really like to bring these bills up, and then he decides, and then the next day you have to pick again a different 3. So towards the end of session you get 5 bills on notice of intent, but normally it's just 3. So it's like a mind game. It's a purposeful mind. Yeah. Okay, here's all the bill becomes a law. Okay, who's this? Look at that, it's our cute Speaker of the House, Dustin Burrows. Look at that. Look at him from beginning to now. Right. What? Oh, yeah. I think does anybody watch Reno 911? Okay. Thank you. That's all I thought. Okay. We love Burrows. Pardon? No, Burrows won. Cook is gone. No, that's Burrows and Burrows. Burrows and Burrows. Burrows and yeah. I felt like his first when he ran for office. Do you guys want to search for any other bills together? Would this be helpful? Yeah. Uh-oh. Okay, I do want to show you. Talk amongst yourselves. So let's look at a bill from last session that probably passed. So we think they should, so they just recycle bill numbers every session. So when you're like, Senate Bill 4, right? Well, 2 sessions ago, that was, I think, the border bill. It's been the abortion bill. And so some of the staffers joke that they need to retire bill numbers like we do jerseys, right? That like once it's a big controversial bill. Let's see what this bill is. Yeah, see, it's just, okay, this is a good one to look at. So here's the history of everything that happened with this bill. And, oh, it's the voucher bill. Okay. Oh, that's what this one is. Okay, and so you can see all the subjects. And then what committee it went to, how they voted. If there's a companion, it means that it's exactly the same filed in the other chamber. Sometimes they're just similar, and then sometimes you have a sponsor. So often you'll file a bill in both chambers that is exactly the same because you don't know which one's going to move. Right? And some bills just get held hostage because of other things that are happening. So always right around April, the chambers start fighting with each other. So the Senate will not pass too many House bills. So the House is like, I'm not going to pass your Senate bills. And several years ago, they had what was called the Mother Day Massacre. That happened on Mother's Day weekend. And the House got so mad, they killed like the last 150 bills on the calendar because they were so mad at the senator. Maybe Craddock was mad at us, but so remember the slide about college, right? They get really nasty with each other. It gets really petty. But they're wonderful, distinguished individuals that we should all respect and look up to at all times. Okay, here's the history. You go all the way to the bottom, and I'm sorry for the scrolling. But you'll see it gets filed, it's considered in hearing, it hits the Senate floor. Here's where you can go to the journal to see how they voted. So it's like a diary. Both chambers have a diary. So it'll tell you that this bill prevailed by yeas and nays, which is probably party lines. And we had an amendment, and I'll save you from reading all that. But you can get really into the weeds about what happened. I don't know where that window goes when I close it, so hold on a second. I'm looking for it so hard. So if you want to track things on your own, you come over here to My TLO. So I'm already signed in, but it'll ask you for your email. And then you can start adding bills to your bill list. You can start an alert list. And you can like always save for election bills and then run that search again. And here is some additional information. So let's look up a bill. Let's see, we'll come over here, we'll look up the bill. I won't leave this screen. Sorry. Pick all the election again. Search. And then here are all the bills, and I'll click on a bill, and let's say I really care about election fraud, which I do. Then I'll add it to my bill list. And then it told me to log in. So if I were logged in, I could add it to something. And don't forget, right here, you can watch what's happening on these very fun channels. Here are all the calendars, the bills, and the votes. And you can always call, you can call the library, the Legislative Reference Library, and they will help you as an individual of the public. They're very, very helpful. And there is an IT number here to call if you're struggling. Well, let's talk about how you can advocate. So how to advocate. Okay, so when I said that a lot of bills don't get passed, I mean, 1/3 of the bills filed get passed. So they still get passed. It's these big hot button issues that you have to reevaluate what your strategy is and what you think a win is. And that's kind of, I have 2 messages I want you to walk away with. One is do more than nothing. Right? A lot of people get all riled up and, what is the best way? How should I spend my time? Just do something, anything. Just do more than nothing and you're already ahead. The second is redefining what a win is to you. Because with this breakdown in the legislature, bills are going to pass that you can't there's no path. There's no path to stop that bill. And no amount of logic, no graphs, no presentations, no personal stories that normally work. Some things are just set in stone. So you have to say to yourself, it's not if this bill passes or doesn't pass, it's what I did as an individual. So sometimes the win is that you're just paying attention and then you're telling other people about it. Sometimes the win is that you come down and you testify, right? Because people are watching you. You have no idea what your action, what ripple that has in the little pond, right? Or what window of opportunity. I'll answer your question in 1 second. If y'all were around for Wendy Davis's filibuster, but the precursor to that was little bitty moments. So if you remember the public health hearing that had gone to like 2 a.m., and traditionally we don't cut witnesses off. Anybody who is signed up gets to testify. That's the rule. And the chairman decided to cut off witnesses. And that was like phase 1 of that powder keg was all the members of the public in the office and Lizzie Burr, I don't know if you know who she is, she just kind of was there and she became the spokesperson for this movement. But it was that one moment when the chair did something unprecedented that sparked the next move. So your win is showing up and doing something and you have no idea what somebody else is going to do.
Yeah, my comment was that sometimes you talk about redefining what a win is. Sometimes what you do makes a bill less bad.
Yes.
The voter suppression bill a couple of sessions ago started out horrible. It's a horrible bill. And we managed to get stuff taken out of it. And even though what passed was not great, it was also horrible, but it was not as horrible as it could have been.
That's good. Sometimes it's just
But
less
if
bad.
people had not been doing something, writing letters, talking to their reps, encouraging them to, pointing out flaws in what the bill was, the bill would have been a lot worse.
Yes, that's a very good point. So I don't want you to be discouraged. You just have to reevaluate what your win is. And so don't stop. There is a question about right now, is the best advocacy done at the Capitol or is it in your neighborhoods? Right now, are we talking to the people who maybe we thought shared our values and don't? And so I kind of talk about bearing witness. Like that's what I feel like I'm doing in this session right now is keeping a timeline. I'm writing it down. You did this. I saw you. I'm talking about it and I'm telling people and I wrote it down. And then I also pretend that like I'm in prison and I'm like, all I can do right now is work out a lot and I can go to the library and I can read a lot and then I can watch and see where there are weaknesses in my keepers and then I'm going to wait for that window of opportunity. I'm going to be smart enough and strong enough and I'm going to get out. Yes, ma'am.
You also make that warriors organization that was in support of a bill and it turned out not. The reason we did was the person who authored the bill said if there had not been that call in support of this bill, so calls matter. The bill was voted out of committee, was voted positive. We ran out of time, so it didn't get to the Senate. But it's people make action.
And so, even if you're discouraged, still participate. It's still very important. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just technical question. So just remind me.
I'm sorry, I know I can't figure out the screen.
I know that sometimes there are versions from another session, and then it comes back.
Uh-huh.
and we have to compare to what language has changed or what changed in the versions. And so where do you find that? Because there's a side by side.
There is a side by side.
I can't remember.
I can't tell you right offhand, but it's somewhere in the bill lookup. And sometimes on the bottom, you can ask it to compare this bill to that bill, and it runs the word track changes. I will figure that out and post it somewhere for you. So I have access to, look at this. Whoops. Yes.
Can they just run out the clock?
Yes.
Do they do that?
Yes. Yeah. And so what they'll also do, and this is so in the weeds again, but what they'll also do is you adjourn for a day, and that's a legislative day. Or they can recess, which is not a legislative day. So a lot of the rules are about legislative days, not calendar days. So if you just recess on a Monday, and you come back on a Tuesday, you really haven't gained a day, because it's like you just came back 15 minutes later. So that's another strategy to either speed things up or slow things down.
That's my question on the people that live in rural Texas.
Yes.
How is an effective way for them to interact with the legislature? And what do you see happening that's worked for some of those very, very rural areas?
Great. I think this slide should answer that question for you. So great segue. Thank you. It is so easy for people in Austin and the surrounding area to come down to the Capitol, and we can't deny that, right? It's meant so if a whole bunch of Austinites show up in support of the bill, it's not really an accurate representation of how people feel across the way. So during COVID, they let people submit. So when a bill is in committee, you can go to a kiosk in the Capitol, or on your phone, there's a witness registration button, and you can register if you are for or against the bill. As an individual, lobbyists will do it, but that is something you should do. But you have to be in the building to do it, on the Wi-Fi of the Capitol to do it. Now you can register, it used to be called dropping a card, because you literally dropped a card, but now it's online. So you can choose to testify or not testify, either way. And I recommend all of you testify on something. I've never gotten to do it, because by the time I knew it was happening, I was a staff member, and my disguises don't work very well when I sneak in. But it's a really powerful moment for you. And don't pick the big crazy bills, just pick a simple bill and get the practice in, and then come back to the bigger one. So always call your member. Because remember, they work for you. You elected them or you didn't, but they're still in your district, so they need to answer you. And we do keep track of every call to our office, every email to our office, every letter that we get to our office. We do discriminate against non-constituents, and I think everybody does that, right? We listen to our people more. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't call members that are outside. We just let me rephrase that. We listen to our constituents more and first, because they're the people who we are representing. So we have an internal tracking system. And so when there's a bill on the floor or in the committee, I run a report and I give it to my boss, and I say 78 people said they wanted this bill, 22 said they were against it, and here are some good, here's a really moving story from one of them. So one of the things I want to talk to you about is when someone's going to say, should I write a hand letter or email? Email is just fine now. It's just different these days. We treat an email exactly the way we would a handwritten letter. And honestly, most of the handwritten letters we get are from members of incarcerated individuals. They're very thick and very long. We will read them, but an email is just as powerful. We don't think that's a weak move. It's just as powerful. But if you say something personal in your message, that's what gets through. And you want to be clear and concise in your messaging when you reach out to someone. So something really long and verbose, I'm going to scan it. And I don't know what other member offices do, but staff triage the contact and get to the information to the boss. So I get all my information to my boss. Every member I've ever worked for has done the same thing, but he is not reading those letters individually. But I do print out the really powerful ones, right? So if it's a domestic violence one and somebody's written in about their personal experience, I will send that. If it's just one of the ones where you get an email that says, click here to contact your legislator, and it pre-populates, I still count those. They're not as, they're in the count, but they're not as moving. They're not as moving as a personal story. And we don't need, I don't need your dissertation. I love reading, but I love reading more in the interim, not during session. You just want to be very clear, concise in your message. You want to be polite and professional in whatever you're doing. You want to tell them you're a constituent, right? So, dear Bobby Guerra, my name is Stephanie Chiarello. I live in McAllen, Texas. I'm very upset about fracking, and my house exploded last week because of fracking, and I can't rebuild, and I really want you to support House Bill 12. That's it. What you want, what bill it is, and why. That's all you need to say. When you send an email in all caps, it's not as effective as you might want it to be, right? I mean, I can hear you yelling. When you threaten, right? Don't do that either. Don't do that either. So we'll get this. You don't vote for this bill, God and the devil we get that one. We get scary. We get super religious ones, and then you do get the you better watch out ones. And I've started forwarding those immediately to DPS. I used to just be like, but now I want a record of everybody who's touched our office. And then you want to know how your member, whoever you're writing, has voted. So sometimes, I used to work for Kirk Watson when he was in the Senate. We'd get emails, how dare you not support women's rights, and I'm coming for you in this election. And it's like, well, he did actually support the bill that you wanted us to support, so make sure that you're spending your capital appropriately. And you never know. Oh, quick. So your senators. So these are your senators. They were your senators last time, and so just this delegation. Some of y'all might have somebody else. Yes, ma'am. Boss is AI at this point. That joke died also. No. That's a great suggestion. We already get, you can already tell when the messages come from one of those clicks because it all has the same header and it all has the same information. So I can filter those out of my inbox into a different folder. Bots. Gotta call the governor and look for bots. There is a rumor that Leg Council was using AI to help draft bills, and that is so frightening to me. But it could be happening. Okay, so when you write, you always want to write your senator and your representative. And normally when people reach out to our office, y'all are frustrated and angry and you're not your best self. And I understand that. I still am asking if you will be polite and kind. Because whoever answers the phone is generally an intern or a junior staffer. So when you yell at them, you're just yelling at them, right? The member doesn't really feel that. The member feels it on social media, but the member doesn't feel it when you call. But just be polite, even if they disagree with you or you disagree with them, right? When they go low, we go high and low. We need a double strategy. You want to write bill authors and then their co-authors. So there's a primary author for every bill, and then you can have up to 5 joint authors. So those are like people who super support what you're doing, and then there are co-authors that can be the whole rest of the body. They're like, I want credit for that. That's what a co-author is. And the more people who sign on to your bill and the more balanced those people are, the more likely your bill is to pass. It's a way to show support. But if there's a bill that you like or don't like, write the author and tell them why. And somebody in the back here was talking about making a bill better. Like the second that bill is filed, read it. And if you're a teacher and you're reading a bill and you see like an administrative error in it, like that's not actually how the process works, right? Or if you do that, you're going to run into this. Call the author and make a suggestion to adjust the language. And it's not a fight. It's not always a fight. You call LWV, you get a draft of your bill, and then you vet it, right? You vet it through the public. So you might have a suggestion, and it'll help make the bill better, and they'll be receptive to that. And so when bills show up in committee, I would say 90% of the time it's a committee sub. That's because the language has changed based on people's input. You can also amend a bill in committee, but normally it's a whole committee sub. So early and politely is the best way to make change. If you want to kill a bill, write to the legislator who hasn't signed off to that offending bill. So you can see that on TLO. You can look and see, here are some people of the other party who haven't signed on yet, so they're probably on the fence. So you can call and be like, thank you so much. Please don't vote for this bill because. No, we're just making strong eye contact. Yes. I feel there's a presence. There's a man in your life. Is it a older?
So when you say the legislatures haven't signed on yet because they're vulnerable, can you write to representatives?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They did it. Thank you. Thank you. I feel that the spirit has passed. They've gone to the other side. Yes, you can and you should. And what we do is this, when somebody writes us, we normally are like, we're going to respectfully refer this person to their member, because you do want to give people the courtesy of serving their own constituency first. So when you write a letter to someone who is not your legislator, say that first thing. My name is Stephanie Chiarello. I am not your direct constituent, but I am a Texan, and I want to tell you why House Bill 2165 is very important. Because I have had a Gold's Gym membership for 24 years because I can't cancel it, and I need to click a button. So especially the committee members. So when a bill is in committee, you want to call all those committee members to say, please vote for this bill. Please get this bill out of committee. Please don't vote for this bill because. And one of the most powerful things you can do is walk into the office. And that's why we are at a severe advantage being here in Austin. But when you walk into an office, you should be able to speak to a staff member. You just say, hi, I'm here. I want to talk to somebody about House Bill 300, who handles environmental issues for you. And that person should take that meeting with you. We always have in every office I have. And you don't need to talk to the member. That's why they have staff. Right? But I'd say 15% of the time the member's in the office and will probably walk by or at least shake your hand, right? Especially during session. So that's probably the most powerful thing you can do. Then call or write, and then show up. Yes?
So I'm curious, who actually drafts?
So normally it's Ledge Council, which is a group of lawyers who look through the bills and write them. And there is a formula for how they need to be written, or else what can happen is called a POO. Thank you. A point of order, but we call them POOs. And that means that you didn't follow something administratively. And so that's why you want Ledge Council to write them, because they're lawyers. But I could write a bill. I could write a very simple bill. I could cross one thing out of statute. I could change the number 40 to 50, probably. I could probably download the Word version. So sometimes we try to use Ledge Council. Some people use outside lawyers. Some people use staff. Some people use AI. There is so much. Yeah. I think I said it earlier, but you should call the author's office and ask them for their bill analysis or their one pager. And hold on, Dad, someone's in the back.
What is the most effective way to work with the Texas Senate, knowing that they are under an iron fist? These seem to be
I would say they still work in the Senate because your member is going to make deals with other members, and then perhaps they know someone who can get the lieutenant governor's ear, or they know a lobbyist who can get the lieutenant governor's ear. So it goes back to that kind of still doing more than nothing and still being in training and in prison, but you just keep bringing information to the member to keep doing that work. Because you never know when that window of opportunity is going to open. And so sometimes the lieutenant governor needs something from maybe a chair of his committee. So that chair of that committee could say, well, I'll get this bill passed for you, but I need you to pass Eckhart's. Let's get Eckhart's on the calendar. So those are the kind of wheeling and dealing that's going on in the back. Let's. No, it's not. It's not. It's an internal document that we share trying to get other members' support. They might have like an in-house lawyer who is writing one for them, or an in-house former staffer who knows how to write a bill. But you want it to go, typically you want it to go through Leg Council, because then there's less of a chance of a point of order. Right? If I drafted myself, I could even just like get the numbers wrong or the caption wrong, or I forget to add an enacting clause. But the Legislative Budget Board has a really rigid system of checks and balances. Like one person writes it, one person checks it, one person reads it for grammar errors, one person reads it for spelling errors. So generally you can trust a draft from the LWV. I just wanted to show you this bill. I don't remember which one 10 was. Teacher retirement system. So once the bill comes out of committee, there is this analysis, which is your plain language. But it's only once the bill has been voted out of committee that they share this publicly. Yes. No, never. Yes, that happens, and I wanted to show you it does have a caption that says relating to certain benefits paid by Guerra. So that's the like most basic that you're going to get. So you can call a point of order on a bill if the caption doesn't accurately reflect what is in the bill. And that's how a lot of bills die. And that's called scrubbing. Scrub a bill looking for error. But the parliamentarian decides if it's a point of order is sustained or not. So it's actually a really fun thing to watch when it's happening on the floor, because somebody will come, there's a front mic and a back mic in both chambers. And the person at the front mic is presenting their bill, and then the person at the back mic is like, I have a point of order according to section 532.1 of the rule code. And then the parliamentarian or the speaker will be like, bring your point of order to the front. And then when they do, all these members scrum around the front, and they're listening, and then we all get on Twitter to see what is happening. And generally, the point of order is overruled. But I mean, this is a way to kill a bill. So if your caption is wrong, and if your bill analysis is wrong. So we had a bill that got killed last session on the floor that I'm very upset about, because it was a bill that asked the state to look at renting state-owned buildings to local arts organizations. It's certainly not personal to me at all. It's not like I'm looking for theater space and there's a theater in the Capitol that nobody uses. But that was the idea, was in all these, why aren't we using classrooms at universities for meetings or rehearsal space for band, right? It's a sunk cost. So we made it through committee, we made it to the floor, and this gentleman named Briscoe Payne killed it. Yes, he has a mustache. And he killed it because the caption was like, letting arts organizations use state buildings, but the bill analysis said letting theater and dance and musical. Like it was just barely different, but the parliamentarians sided with him. So it's an opportunity for good and for not good. Yes.
So I've been writing testimony on a bill and getting to a public hearing and find out that there's a substitute. And so my testimony is lacking. So how do you find out before a public hearing that there has been a substitute and find out what the language of the substitute is?
If it is a friendly office's bill, you call the office and you say, is there a committee sub and will you share the language with me? Because generally it's not available. It's just not available. And part of that is strategy, but honestly, part of that is just mechanism. Because when a committee decides to schedule a bill, you have like 48 hours or 72 hours before the hearing. And only the second your bill is scheduled for a hearing does LWV write the bill analysis. Do you get a fiscal note from the comptroller that tells us how expensive it will be? Or the LWV is like, oh crap, they wanted to change this bill, now I'm gonna start working on it. Like that's how it gets moved to the front of the line. So sometimes it's just not ready. It's just not ready. But you can ask a friendly member or just a friendly person on the committee. You call their office. So if the person who authored it won't give you the committee sub, because they all get it, all the members of the committee get the committee sub. But still make your testimony on the original bill. It is a malfunction, a severe malfunction. Oh. Yeah, so let's try call the office or call somebody friendly on the office. And so that might be useful, to like befriend the staff. So that, for example, if any of you were to text me and I had access to something, I might give it to you. Just for example, maybe. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Let's talk about how to testify, because I think this is something everybody should do. Yes. So you would walk into the Capitol building. Let's say, do you know who you want to go talk to? Who's your state rep? So like Gina Hinojosa or James Talarico? Or let's pretend it's Donna. Where do you live? Yeah. Okay, so I bet Gina Hinojosa is probably your state rep. So if you go to that Texas Legislature online and you look her up, you'll find her room number. So then you walk into the Capitol. I need a whole other 1-hour presentation on how to navigate your way around the Capitol. I will show you some of the maps. So this is how to unconfuse yourself in the Capitol. Is when you walk into the extension and you have your back to the Capitol, it's a clock. And the Capitol is 12 o'clock. And then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, round. So whenever you're like E1 750, it's a clock. And then when you're in the building, it's north, south, east, and west. Of course, they look identical. So go to the middle and try to figure out which way you're going. And then we have at the extension 1 is the first floor. Extension 2 is the bottom floor. Then we also have 1E and 2E in the main building. All right, so if the E is in front, you're in the extension. I know, it's hard. So you find out who your person is. You can even call and say, I'd like to schedule a meeting. Or you just walk in and you say, I want to talk to you about HB 10, or who handles education. I'd like to have a meeting with them. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so ask for who handles it. And in our office, I assign our staff. We each have a policy portfolio, and then we try to take that meeting. And if not, a junior staffer will take it, but I trust every member on my staff to take a meeting. But when you are presenting a meeting, okay, you want to have a one-pager if you can, something that summarizes what you care about. It can be front and back. After that, again, like I can't read a dissertation, I can't read a chapter. We're just not at that point. And so you want to be able to have that meeting in 15 minutes. 15 minutes is how long you want to be able to have that meeting. So that doesn't mean you can't send more information, but a clear and concise talking point, and you just hand it to them. And in my office, my junior staff takes the meeting and then they write me a memo so that I get that information very quickly. So it's like a sieve in our office to the boss, where my staff will take a 15 to 30 minute meeting, they'll write me a memo that I read in a minute, and then I talk to the boss about it in 5 seconds. Right? That's how we process all that information. Somebody might agree with you but not vote how you want them to.
Sometimes when I'm done is I bring a handout and ask for questions.
That's great. And also, I lost my thought. Scanning, bringing it in. Oh, okay. You get 2 minutes to testify in a hearing. That's pretty typical. So prep your statement and practice it in front of the mirror. And then you got to add, for me, when I practice my stand-up, I have to add like 2 minutes because I talk way slower when I'm in front of somebody than when I am, because I don't laugh at my jokes as much as y'all will. Right? But so I have to add some type of practice, okay? And then don't get tongue-tied when you sit down and be like, oh God, I only have 2 minutes. Well, let me try to organize my thoughts. You have lost 10 seconds of your time, right? So just get right to it. Thank you so much, members, for having me here. My name is Stephanie Chiarello. I'm here in opposition to House Bill 1212. House Bill 1212 will destroy public education because, right? But practice so that you have it done. But any member on the committee can ask you a question, and that extends your time. So the chairman can bring invited testimony, and that's normally somebody who supports their bill. And it doesn't mean that they're an expert, and it doesn't mean that it's fair, and it doesn't mean that they're accurate. It just means that they're going to say the things that the committee chair wants them to say, and they can talk for as long as they want. Public testimony is 2 minutes, but if somebody asks you a question, you can keep talking. So one strategy is you go into the members' offices and say, hey, can you ask me here are some questions your boss could ask me to help me extend my time. So we do that especially with Equality Texas is an organization that is pro-public schools, and so they don't normally get a lot of conversations, but you could say, oh, well, wasn't there a report is there any research you have? And then they can just keep talking. So if you really have something you want to say, you can go to the member and ask them. No, I'm sorry. The members can't invite tests. Is that what you mean? Only the chair can invited testimony. Only the chair. Now, as a member, you can say, hey, I'd like to invite these people as invited testimony, and they may or may not. You could ask someone to register to testify. You could say, oh, I see my mother is here. Mom, please go testify so that you can come and talk about your experience as a professor at UTR. But she couldn't come up without going through the process of registering consent. It would be a point of order. And I wouldn't want publicly to be like, say this. I had to do that behind, under the table, in the back. Yes, sir. Yes, we take the mic then.
Speaker who only looks at their notes while they're talking versus making eye contact. Does it make any difference? I mean, if you're testifying to this group of people, is it better to be able to make good eye contact with that next group reading from your script rather than, I really don't like the house going on. Does it affect it in any way?
would say that testifying is scary, even though it shouldn't be. It is. It's intimidating. And as a member of the public, they are going to be nice to you. They just are. They're not going to attack you unless you are the Planned Parenthood lobbyist, or right. So they're not going to come hard for you. So you should feel safe, but it's very nervous. So I'd say I'd rather you come and read from your script than not come at all. If you happen to have a performance background and you are comfortable, then write that in your notes, right? Like look up at chairman and make eye contact. So I would argue that yes, it is good to make eye contact and make sure that somebody's really paying attention. But I would argue they're both effective. One just has better showmanship. So don't let that stop you. Because you hear people, you can hear it in their voice, and oh, my heart goes out to them. You're safe. You're safe. Somebody might agree with you, but they can't vote for the bill you want. And so this is where you have to be really mindful, and where we hope that we are electing people who can make tough decisions. Because nothing happens in a vacuum in that building. So you think that in a committee you can vote against this, well, Burroughs is gone, but let's pretend it's Dave Phelan's bill now, because Dave Phelan is still a member of the House, the former speaker. He just goes back to being a regular member, which I don't know how his therapist is helping him through that. But if you vote, and he'll probably be a chairman, he'll probably chair a committee, right? So if he chairs public ed and you vote against his bill in energy, he's not going to let any of your bills go through public ed. Right, so it's unfortunately not this place where you can really vote your ideals all the time. They are making decisions. Like, vote this out, and Dave will come to my boss, like, hey, will you vote for this out of committee and I'll help you get that bill over there. Right, and that's the coalitions that they have to build, and then we have to respect that they're going to build. You just have to trust that they are weighing what is the most important. So we might kill vouchers, but at a cost of climate change. And that's, I don't think anybody supports both those things, but you just don't know. And so don't burn a bridge because your member didn't vote the way you wanted on one scene. 18-ish, they do, and then they make subcommittees also. And then they make temporary committees, like a select committee on the border crisis, or like the Uvalde shooting had a select committee. I should memorize those, and I should memorize the chairs. It's not exactly the same. Like the budget is broken down into articles, but the committees are not exactly the same, and they're different in each chamber. Here are all our committees. Oh wow, it's way more. But these are all the subcommittees here on appropriation. So they could act. So no, the answer is no. They're separate. Sometimes they divide them. And what will happen is, generally a bill, like you would think a bill about plugging abandoned wells is going to go to energy or environmental resources. But if the chair has said, I'm not going to pass this bill, suddenly that bill gets reassigned to business and commerce. Not everyone's going to agree with you at all times, but you want to make your point, you want to be polite, you can still be fierce, but don't threaten, because they know you can vote them out of office. So if you come in like, I demand, nobody likes that, just like not in our day anyway, they want to think it's their idea. I'll say that a little louder, they want to think it's their idea. So polite, professional, you can still make your point, you can tell them you're very disappointed. That's so much more powerful than being angry, as all of us children know. But you might need them tomorrow. You want to find common ground wherever you can. Like I said, that organization, TPPF, can kill a wonderful bill because they put out these report cards. But sometimes you're with them. Sometimes you're with them on payday lending, right? You never know. And it hurts. I want you to know how much it hurts when you watch somebody walk into that office who has successfully advocated for one of your rights to go away. for example, maybe the Catholic Bishops Association comes in and is anti-abortion, but then you're working together to get homeless shelters. And it hurts. Because I hate that woman so much. Sorry. I love her. But you still find the common ground where you can do good. I have to put that aside because I know that we're going to be able to do good together. Sorry for offending any Catholic bishops. And you want to adjust your language when necessary, right? So you don't lie. Please don't lie. But if you're talking to somebody who might be more pro-business, you're going to make the business argument with them for something. This bill is great because if I help a non-custodial parent find a job, then they're not going to be in jail and they're not going to cost us $25,000 a year. Where you might talk to somebody else about, this is so hard for their family and they're not there and they can't raise them. You're gonna shift based on what you know about that member and what you think will be the more effective argument. Okay, this is what you can do. You can stage an alternate rebellion. I learned about this from my therapist. Here are some examples. Right? I just want to dance. Right? Why can't I dance in the barn and I have to go to the county across the way? The Bible says David danced. Yeah, so you might want to do that, right? And so what does an alternate rebellion look like? It's when you're still following the law, but you're doing something kind of rebellious, right? So you can have a party at your house where you invite a bunch of friends over and you write letters. You can attend a town hall or organize a town hall. You can create a whole political comedy satire show that shows up on theater once a year and as a podcast that you can download wherever you get your podcasts. Okay.
Or is it better to come with maybe more aggregate data around a number of
Okay, so the question was, what is more effective testimony, personal stories or facts and figures? And I'd argue it depends on who you're talking to, and I think this is a problem that Democrats have, is that they use facts and figures and think that it's a logical argument, but really it's a passionate story about how people are feeling. So if you're talking to members of the committee who you think will be moved by facts and figures, give it to them. If not, you want to bring in somebody from their community who says, you know, my husband dragged me around the house by my hair and I couldn't get out of that house, and the way I will get out is if you fund the Council for Family Violence Shelter. Like I got teared up just thinking about that right now. So a personal story, but I don't want you to say anything you don't feel comfortable saying in public space because it is recorded. Very rarely do we ever go back and look at it, but it is there, right? But that's how you lose people. Let's see. Okay. You also don't have to do this all by yourselves. Right? It's a lot. It is so much information. And if you don't know how to do it, I'm in my 10th session at the Capitol. Yes, I started at 13. Thank you for noticing. Other people are going to do this work for you. So find somebody who you trust. And then this is my recommendation, is that they're telling you the truth and that it's accurate and supported by other organizations. Here are the places I go for information. Texas Tribune is totally free for you, and they're so Texas specific, it's wonderful. The Quorum Report is subscription only, but you can still read the headlines and get a pretty good feel, and then just go Google the story, and some of them are not behind the paywall. Or you can pay for it, it's very expensive. It's like $300 or $400 a year, or just ask some member for them. Here are some that some people would argue are left-leaning, and then here are some that people would argue are right-leaning. So you always want to hear what everybody's saying. I do not observe the observer. I will add that. True. And then I just picked some articles for you to talk about from this week. One is the winners and losers in the speaker debates at the election. So if you voted for Cook, right? How are you going to repair your relationship with boroughs right now? And one of the problems is there are not enough senior Republicans who voted for boroughs to chair the committees. So, yeah, I mean, I guess there were more like 30 committees. I'm a little embarrassed, right? But boroughs won 85 votes, and I think almost 50 of them were Democrats. So who are you going to make chairs? Are you going to make a Democratic chair who supported you, or are you going to make a Republican who didn't vote for you a chair? Or are you going to make a freshman a chair who can't find their way around the Capitol right now? Right? The to be continued. Abbott wants to extend the DEI ban, and then the Texas Tribune did a little intro to the ledge too. I just randomly picked those for you. Follow this hashtag on the socials. Hold on one second. Especially when something really exciting is happening, this is when you go to Twitter with this hashtag. I hate Twitter. I don't have my account anymore. I only use my boss's. But you can still see things, right? Because there'll be a reporter on the floor, or there'll be a member telling a reporter what is happening. So you'll know in advance if the point of order is going to hold or not. You're going to know who hit who on the floor and where the scrum went. That was a fun game. Who's drunk? This is where you'll find that out. Okay.
Cook or others around him saying that they're going to try and censure anyone that voted for boroughs. Can you explain what that means?
So the Republican Party of Texas passed a new part of their platform or their rules that said the party could censure a member, and then that means that you can't go on their ballot. So in Texas, we don't register as a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or whatever. But so I could file as a Republican or a Democrat when I run for office, and there's nothing you can do to stop me from picking either one. So what they're trying to do is have some power over that. And I don't know if that's constitutional. I don't know where those rules are, but that's what they're saying. They'll censor them. So normally, like right now, like I said, I could run as a Republican for governor. I could win, and I could not do anything but the Republican Party platform told me to do. So that's what these very passionate members of that party are trying to do, is really control their members more rigidly. So here's my contact information. I am serious if you walk into my office, which is ground north 7. So we're in the basement of the main building, but almost in the extension, hidden behind like Medal of Honor exhibits. We're ground north 7. I will print something for you. I will copy something for you. You can leave your backpack, as long as it's not full of that. And I'll answer any questions and be as helpful as I possibly can.